Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be putting two of the best benches in the world head to head. The first bench we're going to be looking at is the tried and true Ironmaster Super Bench version 2. And we're going to be putting that up against the new kind of hotshot bench in the market. And that is the Freak Athlete ABX adjustable bench. I've had my ABX for about 2 weeks now. We're going to talk about each of these benches, the pros and cons that come along with them, also the ecosystems that come with each of these benches, which is really why I wanted to do this comparison. Both of these benches are supposed to be taking the place of several pieces of equipment. It's really cool how they do that. We're going to get into that later. I'm going to talk about which one might be best for you depending on your situation. And just a little spoiler here, both of these are fabulous benches. There's not a lot of cons to these. I was really pleased with both of these. I'm excited to talk about it with you today. Let's go ahead and get into it. First, let's take a look at the ABX. And I've got to say, this is a beautiful looking bench. I love the black and white trim. I actually did reach out to Freak Athlete because I am extra and bougie and asked if they were ever going to come out with a stainless steel or clear coat version. As you can see, I have the clear coat Fringe Sport Dane rack, and I know it's extra, but I really wanted to get the bench to match that. Unfortunately, Freak Athlete did get back to me and let me know that that is not in the plans. But just from an aesthetic standpoint, I think this is a beautiful bench. I love the lasered out numbers detailing the numbers you're adjusting to. It has knurled handles on both handles for the adjustments, and also a knurled handle adjuster knob, which is becoming more and more common, and I gotta be honest, it's pretty extra in my opinion, but hey, you know what? It's cool. And then I really like the X design up front. What this does is give you that added stability without having the Ironmaster design. And let's go ahead and take a dive into that Ironmaster design here. And this is almost like an I shape here. And what this does is adds a lot of stability. The Ironmaster has this swooping shape here for all the adjustment points. And then it has an adjustment peg. You step down on this, it lifts it up and you're able to slide up and down really easily and seamlessly. And also has that knurled handle to adjust. One of the key differences between these benches is actually how the Freak Athlete bench adjusts. This has a ladder style adjustment system, which is pretty popular amongst benches. You can even do this one-handed. This is me one-handed here, lifting this up. Just like so. This is actually a great time to showcase one of the main reasons I got this bench, and I'm sure one of the main reasons why you are all considering buying this bench is because it has an auto zero gap feature. Now, I had a rep bench that had a zero gap feature and it was pretty clunky in my opinion. It also made it extremely heavy, but just watch as I drop this down, the bench is going to auto close to where there's zero gap here. Just like that. As simple as that. Let's raise it up again. Then you can obviously adjust this here and you still have that zero gap bench. Really awesome. Let's close it up one more time. Really cool, really seamless. Just a tremendous upgrade from what we have on the current marketplace. And let's talk about why I'm putting these two benches up against each other. And full transparency, it would have been great to include the Tib bar bench. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get my hands on that. The reason why I'm comparing these is these are more than just bench presses. These are really entire gym ecosystems. You're able to get several attachments for these and really build out your gym, which if you're in a space like me, space is the #1 limiting factor. So being able to essentially add a leg extension, a preacher curl, a shoulder press, a place to do your rows, all of these things included in just an adjustable bench and not really taking up too much of a footprint is a huge perk for me. So that would almost be my first note. Those looking for more than just an adjustable bench, these benches are for you. And first thing first, let's go ahead and dive into pricing for both of these because this is something that I think is important. Let's talk about that Freak Athlete first. It is $599, so $600 for this bench. On top of that, I was bummed when I went to order this and I went ahead to, shipping. And shipping was an additional $100 to ship it to my house. In total, with taxes and everything, it was $735. When you see $600 and then you're actually getting charged $735, kind of disappointing on that end. And to that point, the Ironmaster bench is $500 for this version 2 bench. When you go to check out, free shipping to all 48 states. I can't speak for overseas or if you're in Alaska or Hawaii, but really cool that that is free shipping. And let's talk about some of the biggest differences with this bench. One of the main reasons I wanted this Freak Athlete bench is because it looks a little more like a traditional bench. The Ironmaster is a little unique in that it's shorter. Some pros to that, some cons as well. But this Freak Athlete bench weighs about 100 pounds. I'm gonna be slightly off. I'll post the exact weight here. And the felt weight, I wanna say, is just a tad over 40 pounds, meaning when you're lifting this up, it's fairly easy to maneuver here. And I really wanted to put that to the test because in this limited space, maneuverability is really important to me. I had a Rep Fitness Zero Gap original model that they had for a bit, and I think that bench weighs around 140 pounds. Kind of embarrassing story, but I actually dropped that bench when I was moving it out of my truck. I bought it on Facebook Marketplace, and I wasn't expecting it to be as heavy as it did, and it tumbled out of my truck. And maneuvering that around my gym was just a pain in the butt. This Freak Athlete seemed like a good compromise where it is a little more of a traditional bench, but it's still easy to maneuver. This is just an example of me pushing it in normal patterns that you would, and then also kind of putting it away. And I really wanted to put this to the test to see, what it would look like to maneuver this bench around for someone who might be maybe a beginner, but you're building this elite home gym. I pick up equipment from Scottsdale a lot, and I think there's a lot of people who spare no expense when building gyms, so this might be them. And as far as maneuvering it, I asked my mom, who is over 70 years old, I won't say the exact age, but she looks great. She maneuvered this bench, and she said it wasn't too difficult to maneuver. And so that was a big factor for me. Just the general maneuverability of this bench. It's not too big, it's not too bulky, fairly easy to maneuver around. All right, how did that one feel?
A little heavier, but still
manageable,
doable.
Okay, cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
That Ironmaster bench, the version 2 bench, weighs 65 pounds, so probably one of the biggest advantages to that Ironmaster bench is just how light that really is for how heavy duty it feels. I'm never worried when I'm using that Ironmaster bench about it moving, and when you see 65 pounds, especially compared to some of these other benches, like the 140 pound rep bench I just mentioned, that's actually what I came to. I went from this Ironmaster to the rep bench. I got it because it was a clear coat bench and matched my rack. I'm bougie, I know. And I regretted it pretty quickly just because of how heavy and much of a pain it was to move that rep bench. But 65 pounds, I don't know what the felt weight is on this, but I'm gonna guess somewhere in the 30s. Super light, easy to maneuver. And not just light, but also it's a little smaller because it has that bench seat. All in all, my mom was able to maneuver both of these benches. She actually had a little easier time maneuvering the Freak Athlete, but I think that's because she moved that second and I gave her some tips and pointers after the Ironmaster one. Okay, how did that feel?
It felt fine.
Was it heavy?
A little on the heavy side, but definitely manageable.
We're going to dive into probably the biggest differentiator with this Freak Athlete bench, why it's getting all the publicity. There is this zero gap feature, which is really awesome. And this is mostly compared to other benches. I mentioned the tib bar guy that does not have a zero gap feature. Now, how big of an advantage is it truly? Honestly, I don't know how much a gap would bother me for things like that tib bar guy bench. I don't think it would bug me having that small gap. It's almost like getting your butt in the right position when you're benching, so I don't think I would really mind it. Some of the other benches that have those huge gaps, that's where it would really get bothersome. But for things like tib bar guy and the rep Nighthawk, I think those are great options as well. But the zero gap's pretty cool, works really seamlessly. I've had no issues. Again, it's been a small sample size, but I really like it. And then the other biggest differentiator that not a lot of other benches have right now is this drop-down headrest. And I think this is really where, when we're comparing it with the Ironmaster, is you're going to have your decision here. So the drop-down headrest is really good. Ironmaster has an attachment you can buy that simulates the same thing, but then you're spending another, I think it's $170. So you're basically at the same cost for the Ironmaster versus the Freak Athlete in that respect. And I've actually used on the Ironmaster for things like chest flies, I'll use the seat attachment as a back. It's very small, but it gets the job done. I'm not going crazy heavy on flies. I think that's really the biggest thing where you're going to have to decide, do you want to spend the extra $200 for this drop-down headrest? It's great for doing things like rows, cable flies, shoulder press, where you're not getting in the way there. Those are two of the biggest advantages to the Freak Athlete bench. Honestly, the only con that I can come up with at this point is that price. $700 for a bench is a pretty steep margin to put in. And that's without any of the attachments. If you want to get the leg developer, that is $400. If you want the cable, it's $450 for the Freak Athlete option. Whereas if you're getting the Ironmaster one, you want the leg developer, theirs is only $200. So let's say that's probably the most common attachment here. If you were getting Freak Athlete plus the leg developer, you're looking at spending, we're probably gonna say $1,200. That's with tax and then also those shipping costs. Whereas if you were to get the Ironmaster and the leg developer, that's $700. I'm not accounting for a cable attachment. Now I'm actually going to modify my leg developer and add in a cable attachment. I saw a thread on Reddit. I'm really excited to try that. I think it's only gonna be about $30 to all in and adjust that. If you're just looking at it that way and cost is a factor, and all you want is just a leg extension machine, you're spending $1,200 on that Freak Athlete versus $700 on the Ironmaster. So if cost is a factor to you, I really don't think you can go wrong with that Ironmaster bench. That being said, let's dive into some of the cons with that Ironmaster bench. And really, I'm just going to be highlighting the one con, because there's not many cons with this. But that incline seat bench is not the greatest. Now, we talk about zero gaps. Ironmaster truly is zero gap because there's no gaps on this bench. And how they do that, they have this added seat attachment that slides in. And what I found is this little part here is almost getting in the way on presses and things like that. And on incline movements, it just doesn't really feel like a traditional bench. That feels too harsh because it feels fine and I'm just being extra. But that really is the primary con that I can come up with for this Ironmaster bench. The other one being you can only adjust up and down on one side because as you press this lever down, that's how it lifts up. And for whatever reason, I feel like more than half the time I go to press it and I'm on the wrong side. That could just be a me issue. Maybe it's just bad luck. I should also just remember what side it's on. But I swear every time I go to step and I'm like, damn, I'm on the wrong side. Not a big deal. I step over and adjust it, but still just something to be cognizant of. And let's talk about the ecosystem that you can build with these benches. Can you use Ironmaster attachments on the Freak Athlete? Yes, you can. You can use the attachments. One option would be if you didn't want to spend that $1,200 all in for the Freak Athlete one, maybe you could get the leg developer through Ironmaster and look at that Reddit thread. Then you have the leg developer with cable and you're only spending around $950 probably. So almost $300 cheaper than the Freak Athlete option. And this is just my recommendation here, but I love the Ironmaster Preacher Curl attachment. It is a fantastic attachment. It also works great on that Freak Athlete one. So I'm just going to say, if you're on a budget, one, look for the Ironmaster bench secondhand because that is how I have this one. I paid for it plus several attachments for $450. So it's about $1,100 worth of equipment for $450. So check secondhand. Ironmaster stuff doesn't pop up too much, which I think really is singing its praises because people who buy it generally like it. And it is a fantastic bench. So if you got the Ironmaster one, I don't think you're going to be too upset. But if you have the extra funds, I think I'm going to give the Freak Athlete just the edge in general. I think it's the more modernized bench. The zero gap feature is really cool. The drop down headrest adds quite a bit of versatility that the Ironmaster just doesn't have unless you're ordering that striker pad. I guess the main takeaway here is if money is a big option, you probably aren't getting one of these benches to begin with, honestly. But hey, if money is a concern, get the Ironmaster one. And again, look secondhand. You can score some really great deals secondhand. I have a whole video about the gym I built secondhand. And if money is not a concern, go for it. Get the Freak Athlete one. Get some of the attachments. I haven't tried the Freak Athlete Preacher Curl attachment, but something about it looks goofy to me. It also looks like there's quite a bit of steps just to get it in the right position where, I don't know, I'd just rather use the Ironmaster one. Now, I haven't tried it, so I could be totally wrong here, but that's just me looking at it visually. Something about it makes me raise my eyebrow. And the other thing that I would note is not just money concerns, but if you are someone who's maybe a little smaller, just getting into working out, maybe in the elderly population, but you still want a super heavy duty bench that's easy to maneuver around, I'd recommend the Ironmaster. And especially for small spaces, my gym is almost max capacity here where the Freak Athlete almost is too large. Now, I haven't been bugged by it. That's just some things that I think you should consider when you're going to buy it. But kind of the end of the day, you really can't go wrong with either of these benches. Now, other things you might want to search, watch reviews on to decide what's right for you. The Tib Bar Guy bench looks pretty awesome. What deterred me from ordering that is it would have been the same price as the Freak Athlete adjustable bench, and it didn't have the drop-down headrest. And the drop-down headrest for the Freak Athlete isn't perfect. Like the rowing position felt kind of awkward to me, but it's quite a bit easier to set up. I have a Pegasus rep seat, and I found that the Freak Athlete, I'm probably going to be using that just for the ease of setting it up. And it felt pretty good once I was in there despite feeling awkward. It felt good on the back, I should say. So the added versatility of the Freak Athlete drop-down headrest and the zero gap feature, where the Tib Bar Guy didn't offer either of those, that's what tipped the scales for me. I was bummed because the Tib Bar Guy did come in a clear coat, and if you haven't caught on now, I am. I am picky with that stuff. The other bench I'd say that wouldn't hurt to consider is the Rep Fitness Nighthawk bench. I think that is a solid, saying budget bench that costs $450 feels really like an oxymoron, but it's a good option. It's a lighter bench, still really heavy duty from what I've been told and what I've seen in reviews. So those I think are really good benches to consider. If you don't need like a bench ecosystem and you don't care about weight, I'd recommend something like the Rogue Manta Ray or the Rep Blackwing. All in all, that's my review of these benches. I wish it was more controversial. I wish I had a crazy take. Maybe I should have said something to loop you guys in at the start. If you're still watching though, thank you for tuning in. If there's any questions I can answer about, the ecosystems with these, let me know. I'm happy to do so. But thanks for tuning in. I will see y'all next week. Peace.